Good evening. I'd like to call to order this regular joint meeting of the Minnehaha County and Sioux Falls Planning Commissions, and I'll begin with a few introductory comments. First, Steve is going to be chairing for the city side this evening. My name is Wayne Steinhauer. As a courtesy to everyone here tonight, please make sure that your cell phones are turned off. The two planning commissions work together on land use and zoning matters within the rural area surrounding the city. This area is displayed on the screen. After information and testimony is presented on an agenda item, the members will discuss the matter, and then each planning commission will vote independently to arrive at a decision. When the joint agenda is completed, then the city commission will adjourn, and the meeting will continue as the county planning commission considers items beyond the joint jurisdiction. The decision of the planning commission on the conditional use permits applications will become final 5 working days following the meeting, unless a written appeal is filed with the planning department by you or a person aggravated by such decision, and that will need to be done by March 31st at 5 p.m. In the case of an appeal, your item will be heard at a joint meeting of the Board of the County Commissioners and the City Council, and that's going to be on Tuesday, April 22nd. At or after 5 p.m. in the council room of Carnegie Hall, which is at 235 West 10th Street. The rezoning application must also be heard by the Board of the County Commissioners and the City Council, and that will take place at a joint commission decision under advisement. At that meeting, they will take our recommendation under advisement, but the Board and Council may choose to either uphold or reverse the decision made by the commissioners here tonight. Your rezoning application will be heard by the Board of the County Commissioners and the Sioux Falls City Council. That will be on Tuesday, April 22nd at or after 5 p.m. That meeting will be also held in the Carnegie Town Hall at 335 West 10th Street. You are a representative and need to be present at that public meeting. At this time, the Planning Commission will consider the items on the consent agenda. The minutes from the February 24th meeting are included in the consent agenda. Are there any objections from the Planning Commission to the items on the consent agenda? All right.
City side.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the regular agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I should also get you to approve the consent agenda too, so we could, which is only the minutes. So we do, let's go back to that one. How's that? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, which is the minutes?
I'll do that one too.
You're very helpful. Thank you. All right. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I think we might have a motion, but let's just do it again anyhow. Would you, for humor me, for the regular agenda?
I'll do that too.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Cool.
On the city side, motion to approve the regular agenda.
So moved.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes. Okay.
Opposed?
Okay. Good to go?
Yes.
All right. The following hearing procedure will be used. I will request the planning staff to present a report on an item. Anyone from the audience wishing to address the item will be recognized by myself and move to the podium, state your name and address. The planning commissions will then discuss the matter and make an action. So, the first item is number 2, which is a rezoning. Scott?
Yes. Scott Anderson, representing County Planning Department. Tonight's the public hearing on a rezoning request 14-03. This is to rezone approximately 0.86 acres from A1 agriculture to I1 light industrial district. The property is lot 7 through 10 in block 1 of Algier Land Company, first addition to the village of Ellis. We all know where Ellis is on the west side of Sioux Falls. The applicant is requested to rezone this property to light industrial, and they would have indicated they'd like to do this in order to construct a 60 by 88 foot post frame steel building for personal warehousing. I did conduct a site visit on March 5th, and there are approximately 15 residences to the north and 9 to the south. There is also a large commercial industrial area located approximately 1,000 feet south of Ellis, or sorry, south of the subject property. And this is primarily in and around what used to be the railroad. You may recall we had the feed mill request there back in January. The county has adopted a comprehensive plan, and one of the areas, we have identified areas of future growth. And these future growth areas are called transition areas. The subject property is not located within that transition area, and the concept behind that transition area is that it promotes orderly growth between agricultural uses and urban issues. Furthermore, the comprehensive plan also identifies areas in the county that are to be developed commercially, and those are called rural service areas. And this is also not a rural service area. An example of a rural service area would be like the interstate interchanges, Lyons has been identified, Rowena, and also the intersection of 2 paved highways typically is identified as a rural service area. The applicant would like to rezone this property to I-1 industrial, and it is located in a historic town, basically, and at one time there was a lot more commercial activity along the railroad tracks, and that has changed. In reviewing the proposal, the rezoning proposal, it does not appear to meet the objectives and the policies of our comprehensive plan. It ignores the intent of orderly growth and development, and the rezoning request would not promote the existing residential uses in the area and would probably undermine those existing homes, the use of those homes in that area. It would be an expansion of a industrial use into a primarily residential and agricultural area. And staff also has concerns that it potentially would constitute spot zoning, as it would be an island of less than an acre of industrial property surrounded by agricultural property vis-a-vis the old residential lots that are out there. The closest I-1 light industrial zoning district is approximately half a mile to the south. That's where the Ellis Road and the abandoned railroad right-of-way is located. For all of those reasons, staff cannot support the rezoning request, and it's not consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan, and it appears to be spot zoning or potentially spot zoning. Therefore, staff's recommendation is denial of the rezoning request. I did take a couple of pictures, and I'll show you. This is the subject property, and there is an old residence on the property, and it is in questionable shape. I mean, it's not the best home. This is basically at the corner of Alguire and Walnut, looking at that home. And this is the corner of the property, and then it would be there's like 3 empty lots to the south there. Oops. Okay. I thought I had added a couple pictures, but there's some nice houses to the north, and those, you know. And then there's the church. There is the old, there's an old church that's been renovated into you're probably familiar with it, an old church that's been renovated into a residence. This the church is directly to the east of this property. So I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. I know the applicant's here, and there's several people that have called, and I have encouraged people to come. There was one person that wanted me to forward information to you. I did that last week.
Okay. Would the applicant come forward, please, and state your name and address for the record? And tell us about your plans.
Certainly. Good evening. Brian Ingalls, 1205 South Hyannisport Lane here in Sioux Falls. I am here this evening on behalf of the petitioner, Rainbow Ranch Partnership, to propose rezoning, as Scott mentioned, lots 7 through 10 at 1610 North Elwire Avenue from A1 agriculture to I1 light industrial. On this 0.86 acre tract of land currently sits, as he mentioned, a 100-plus-year-old home, 816 square foot, that is currently vacant, has been vacant for some time. By general living standards, and I would deem this property uninhabitable at this time. The entire property would need extensive renovation, new shingles, new roof, new siding, just to name a few. And based on the age and limited size, it would not be economically feasible to repair the property to acceptable living standards. As Scott mentioned, the plans would call for, what I'm proposing, would call for the removal of this property, of this 1 to 4 family dwelling, and the construction of a pre-engineered post-frame steel structure for personal use and storage. The property would have electrical, sewage holding tank, and water hookup. The long-term plans would include for a bathroom, a lounge area within this property, and the end use would be strictly for personal use. There would be no commercial or retail trade conducted on this property whatsoever. The property, as you mentioned, 37,500 square feet, we're just shy of an acre, 150 by 250 foot parcel of ground. It does lie within a 100-year floodplain. It would be deemed unreasonable to anticipate any type of new home construction in the near future due to the additional cost associated with obtaining flood insurance on any type of mortgage property. In addition, as part of my plan, if you were to get out of the flood zone, you're looking at hauling probably 600 to 800 yards of dirt in there, a renovation, demolition of the existing property, and added probably $15,000 plus to bring it up to specifications to build on. I would, as a petitioner, acting on behalf of the petitioner, I would deem this as proposed structure as an overall improvement to the property as it currently sits, an enhancement to the neighborhood based on $100,000 in building improvements to the site. Furthermore, the existing house is currently sitting in a dilapidated state. Without the proposed rezoning, it's going to continue to deteriorate and create more problems down the line in the neighborhood as it sits vacant. The reason I come together and why I kind of got this idea, if you go to the north of the property, exactly 370 feet, which is you got a good arm with a baseball, you could probably throw it that far. But there is a 70 by 50 foot steel structured building. It's a big white building top left there. It sits, it's currently, it's not a dwelling, it's a standalone property that sits there. There's one other one right to the south that's a bit smaller, and there's 2 other properties to the south of the proposed site here that are affixed to a 1 to 4 family dwelling as part of their property. So that's where the background came from, and I deem it, in my opinion, I guess on behalf of the petitioner, we see that it's very similar in comparison to a handful of other properties in the community. The staff report recommends denial based on spot zoning with light industrial. In all actuality, I'd be in favor of keeping it as A1 and requesting a conditional use permit to even keep the property as it sits and build this secondary dwelling or this personal storage. However, to my knowledge, that was not an option without obtaining that as your primary residence. While working with the Minnehaha County Planning and Zoning staff, has brought to my attention the only way that we could potentially do this, to remove the 100-year-old building, build a proposed structure, is by rezoning it to I1, which this personal shed would fall under section 11.3, which is a light industrial district under permitted special uses. Here, further defined, the building can be contained 20,000 square foot or less. My building would be about 1/3 or 1/4 of that size. It would sit on just under an acre, so the land to building ratio would be in line. I guess in summary, we feel that we'd be significantly improving the property based on the proposed rezoning change. We would maintain it meticulously, well landscaped. We put the standard landscape, the curbing, the rock edge, the new shrubberies. We would have to remove a few of the existing older trees that are in there. And as I mentioned before, there'd be absolutely no commercial or retail trade. I don't know if there's any way you can put a stipulation in there, but we would certainly be in favor of that. We have no intention. It would be a secondary dwelling. We'd be looking at storing a boat, a pontoon, a little bobcat skid loader to move snow. And as I look at it as a disturbance issue to the neighborhood, it would be minimal to none. We'd probably be out there one time a week. I have 3 children of my own. It's just kind of our way from home. We live 2 miles exactly from doorstep to doorstep from where this property would be. So with that, I appreciate your time. Thank you. Any questions that you may have?
Commissioners? Questions for the applicant?
Have you purchased the property in question here already?
We have not. The purchase is, as a condition, would be subject to getting approval to build the shed. I would propose to keep it in place. However, I don't think would be an improvement to the neighborhood. It's going to cost me probably $8,000 to $10,000 to remove the property as such. But if I would be granted, if there'd be consideration for a conditional use permit, I would definitely be open to that. But to answer your question, no, we have not purchased. We have entered into a purchase agreement conditional of getting approval to build the structure that we like.
Thank you.
Mr. Engels, you mentioned that this was in a 100-year floodplain. To build a house, you'd have to build this up, correct?
Correct.
You said you'd have to build it up at 12 foot or something like that?
Right on, it's on the edge. This property, the whole property sits in the 100-year floodplain by FEMA's firm panel map. You would have to build it up. Just to the north of there is where the flood line boundary is at, to my knowledge, the last time I had reviewed the map. But you either have to build out, you get a letter of map amendment based on fill from FEMA. Otherwise, you have to acquire flood insurance, which if you read the Argus today, you can see the additional costs that are rising on the front page of that. So, again, there may be people that do it. I'm not going to say that's not going to happen. I'm just saying, based on my knowledge and my background, it's unlikely unless you're going to come in and buy the property with cash. But by the time you acquire the property for $55,000, you put $15,000 into improvements or to build it up, you're looking at a $70,000 lot. I just don't foresee that.
And you're planning on building it up that 10 to 12 feet then?
Well, we would not build it up. It would be optional because we're going to do this via cash, so we would not have to mortgage the property, so the bank would not require flood insurance. We would build it up to a level probably, we're looking at about 36 inches, around 3 feet is what we're proposing to build it up. 2 to 3 foot.
So a homeowner, if he has cash, he wouldn't have to...
Correct. It's optional, and if it's not a mortgage property, then it's up to the homeowner.
Correct.
But if you are any type of mortgage, the bank will require that you have flood insurance.
Any questions?
Can I show one thing? The applicant did bring in a revised, I can pick this up for you so you can see it. In your packet, I sent out I guess it's not out. I'll just pass this around to you. That's all right, I'll just show him. He brought in a revised sketch of what the building would look like.
Okay. All right, while that's going around, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this item? Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name, and tell us what you're thinking.
Hi, I'm Dave Burton. I live directly north of the property. I've been there 29 years. My house is not in a floodplain. I live 50 feet from this property. I've been there 29 years. Between me and the property is a dirt road. There's very little county maintenance right now on that road. In fact, I provide a lot of it, as do the neighbors, being snow plowing or buying gravel and maintaining the road. We don't really need any extra traffic in that area. It's been a quiet, single-family town since I've been there 29 years. That house was occupied as little as 3 years ago by the present owner's brother. It is habitable. It might not be the Ritz, but a person did live in there 3 years ago. I'm against starting to build metal buildings in that area. It's been single-family houses with small children, a family-type town. I don't know what this guy's going to do in these buildings. I can only guess if he's going to start painting cars or who knows what goes on. I don't feel it's going to enhance my property value any. In fact, it's going to hurt it. I've never been approached by this person. I got my certified letter today in today's mail about this meeting from Rainbow Properties. I haven't had very little notice to do any homework on this. I don't feel it's been real fair. The notice was posted on the south side of the house, and that's just an alleyway. Alguire Avenue is just an alley. You can't even drive down it unless you want to get stuck. You can ask my neighbor who had to tow me out of there this winter because I was foolish enough to take it. I don't know what these people think they're going to drive on, but Walnut Street is, if you drive down Walnut, there's no access to that property off Walnut that's maintained, and it's a steep ditch. Alguire is simply nothing more than just a small alley. It's dirt, and this time of year you can't drive down it. Anyway, I've got more things I'm sure I can think of, but I won't take all this time. There's other people who'd like to talk, but I live just directly across the street within 50 feet, and I'm firmly against this. So thank you for consideration.
Yes, sir.
My name is Harold Pfeifferlich, and I got to fill you in about Ellis. That north end has always had water there. The water comes from this Emmett Leffler's farm. You go north of Ellis and about half mile to the west. That's where all this water comes to flood us out. But it don't flood everything. It just comes in through the north part of that field. The last house in that Ellis addition shouldn't have been put there, either should that other one, because that is our waterway for the water to go across to the other road. Scott here told me, he said, well, the guy put in a driveway that's probably 4 or 5 feet tall, and he's got a 24-inch culvert, and when that water comes through the spring and stuff, or you get heavy rain, it's going to back up again. And the other fellow, they landscaped it all, put rocks in it, it's nice, but that's the only way for that water to come in. Another thing, the water in Ellis used to run to the north. The people on the south end built that up and made an industry area out of it. So, them culverts from that old church or been turned into a house, each one of them culverts dropped down a tenth of an inch. That's about an inch, okay? That goes all the way down. So the water would flow out. There was new culverts already put in there. All right? The middle building, when the Alguire was selling them lots, you had a choice to buy the lot behind you plus the other lot on the street. That is a 66-foot street in the back. And what happened there is, when people moved to trailer houses a long time ago, the township opened them up for people to get into there. And they had a maintainer, a loader, they haul gravel, and they use that 16-foot road there for getting in their houses. Okay? And Alguire Avenue at 1600 was the stop. From there to the south end of D&W, they opened that all up. And then they decided to open the other part of the alley up to the other street up there. But, so anyway, they put a military building back there on that north end because the people had bought 2 lots. My brother and I, we owned that, and we had it vacated on 1600 Alguire. The building the other side, they put a middle building there, and there was supposed to be 2 lots there and all so forth. But anyway, the story goes, the water is a problem, but it's like some 1600 Alguire, where we live in the back field there, or did, there ain't a lot of that water. The water problem was coming from that northwest part of that corner of the intersection up there, from Emmett coming across the field. Then they went ahead and blocked our water outlet. That culvert goes across the road is 48 inches. The county wanted to put a bigger one in. The farmer, whoever owned it at that time, said, hey, you go more water, we're going to sue you. So then the county said, well, let's dig a big trench from that farm place out to County Road 139 and 140. Guess what? It didn't get done because the price was too high. And then in Ellis there, the NW has that big long building, that was a chicken coop. And I heard once they were supposed to make a waterway through there. And like on 1600 where we live, that never flooded our land. Just once when they had all that rain come down here about 30 years ago or when I was a kid, that's the only time we're in a flood zone. Now FEMA's got us in a flood zone. The flood zone is on the north end of Ellis. They don't come up our way. It's all in that north. If they'd watched the housing, if they'd watched them people putting in that buildings up on the south end, maybe our water'd run the right way and we wouldn't have all these water. I lived there all my life, sorry.
Yeah, I was going
And,
to ask you, I'm confused. Where are you in relationship to this?
1600 Elguire Avenue.
So that,
Mulberry Street and Elguire Avenue, right down that corner.
okay.
The 50-foot road runs right into our garage.
Okay.
So, you know, if somebody watched the building going on and did their job, I hate to say it that way, we'd have water going south and we wouldn't have no water flooding us out on that north end. You know, it's terrible.
And your position is this rezoning would make it worse?
Well,
yeah,
we own the property right up to this. You know, if he's going to put a 4-foot or 5-foot berm in there, it's D&W been in Ellis for years. I think probably since I was 6, 7 years old, 10 years old. Wilfred Looney started that business. There was an elevator there. And that road did walk around the back of that big brick building they use for industry. But that's been there. I'd say it's grandfathered in. You know. Ellis is a nice, quiet town. There's no disturbance. Everybody knows everybody. You know, I think, you know, let's let Ellis be nice. Because the city said you never do anything with that Ellis. So the neighbors like the peace and quiet. They probably don't care for the extra travel or what might go on, you know. So everything is hunky-dory now. Let's, you know, there's other land here in Minnehaha County, you know. And let him do a little research. But and I used to go to church there and everything. People are nice. One time they get frustrated when somebody says, hey, you can't do that, you know. But anyway, that's the thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I'm the other half of the property owner of 1600 North Elguire. Just a few things.
What's your name, sir?
Gene Pfeifferlich, excuse me. Anyway, a little bit on the floodplain part. I was told last time I checked, we have the possibility, we're in limbo, we might keep it, we might sell it. But I've been getting quite a few calls on it. And their concerns, a few people did check on it about the floodplain. Well, my specifications is that it had to be built up, the floor of the house had to be 4 foot above that ground level to outdo that floodplain. So that's what their specifications were. The next thing is that the bit of privacy, you know, we're going to be adjoined right next to it. Are they going to have a large fence, block everything off that way, cover it there again? What are they going to have in this storage? Is it going to be in and out of storage? Are they going to have large trucks, 3500s, 1-ton, 2-ton trucks in and out of there for some things? There again, another small bit. We had a little problem with the township. They were complaining they didn't have any money for gravel or granite or to maintain the alleyway and that center street that goes right into our property. And then the other thing is privacy. I'm trying to sell it as property to build a house on. People like it because it's a quiet area yet, and that's their concerns. One thing, the last point is the value going to help? Is it going to hurt? Is it going to stay the same? And, you know, cause problems right there in that area. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Kim Miller. I live at 1514 North Alguire. I'm just south of where he's going to build the building or whatever. I guess I'll just leave it to the planning commission wherever they think's best.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'm Christopher Raymond. I live at 1611 North Ellis Road. For those of you who don't know, that is the church. I don't believe this is a good option. The visibility out in my backyard is wonderful right now. I'm guessing a large building is going to block the sun. We have a garden. You know, it's not very big, but we have a small garden that the sun helps grow with. And I just think the building will block that and depreciate the value of the house long term. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Terry Mullum, I live at 1804 North Alguire. I'm probably 4 lots to the north, and I'm one of the lots that actually has a shed with my property. I'd like to say the shed I have, the tallest door is 7.5 feet, or 7 feet, so I'm not getting anything big in and out. The shed they pointed out that's far to the north that doesn't have any residential property. I'd like to say that they already do cause issues with the extra traffic because there's 3 people sharing that building, and we get a lot of, they don't enjoy driving on the gravel road, so they decide to drive in the ditch, and we have a lot of extra traffic since they bought that property. I'm highly against having a steel building in that property. I guess one of my concerns too is if this is a single person just wanting some personal storage, why is this a Rainbow Ranch partnership and not a single individual participant or going for this? In general, I'm just totally against it. I don't think the roads can handle the extra traffic, and I don't think the neighborhood wants it at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Okay, thank you. Commissioners?
I will make a motion, and I'll move to deny this petition based on the fact that I agree fully with the staff. This is spot zoning. It's nice to hear about all the houses, the roads, the floods, this and that, but that all doesn't matter. We're here to decide whether this is appropriate zoning, and it is not. This is spot zoning. If you put that there, well then who's going to come in with their next deal that wants it light industrial somewhere else in the middle of the residential area? And therefore, I'd move for denial at this time.
Second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second?
On the city side.
I would concur with his comments and move that we deny.
I'll second that.
All in favor of
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
say yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. Motion to deny carries.
Motion to deny carries on the city side.
Item number 3. David, you got the report?
Oh, thanks. Grab that before we go on.
Good evening, Commissioners. David Heinel, Planner 1, Minnehaha County Planning Assembly. Conditional use permit 14-09 is a referral from last month's meeting. This basically is to exceed 1,200 square feet of accessory building area, requesting 1,728 square feet. And this is located in Swanson's Tracks. It's just off of Northwestern Avenue. It's the second lot that's just north of the one right on the corner of Western and 70th Street North. Petitioner is requesting 1,728 feet total accessory building area and would like to use it as basically for personal storage and as a hobby shack and replace an existing garden shed on the property. The proposed accessory building will be located west of the existing residence, in place of where the existing garden shed would be on the northwest corner of the lot. The proposed on March 10th, Mr. Kuima told staff that the proposed accessory building will be constructed with 12-foot sidewalls. And just a brief explanation of what's out there in the area, there are several large accessory buildings located within the Swanson's Tract subdivision immediate area. In 2010, the property owner at 1801 West 70th Street North applied for a conditional use permit 10-07 was approved to allow a total accessory building area of 7,280 square feet, which is located it's in the Recreation Conservation District, which is basically being used for a tree nursery business. And the property owner at 2200 West 70th Street North has 4,704 square feet of total accessory building area. These two properties have large accessory structure sizes because one was built for agricultural equipment storage. The one to the west of the property, as you can see, it's 4,704 square feet. And the other building is used for a tree nursery business, as I mentioned before. The property owner at 6205 North Hummingbird Avenue has a total accessory building area of 1,600 square feet, and the property owner at 6104 Northwestern Avenue currently has 1,380 square feet, both of which are in close proximity to the petitioner's property in the Swanson Tract subdivision. And in 2013, just last year, the property owner at 2000 West 70th Street North applied for a conditional use permit 13-06 to allow 1,590 square feet of total accessory building area. That's the property that's located just southwest of the petitioner's property. On February 13, 2014, staff met with the neighboring property owner who lives at 5904 North Swanson Drive. The property owner is concerned about the impact it will have on the existing septic system drain field, which is located approximately 30 feet to the west of the proposed location for the requested accessory building. They're also concerned that the petitioner will install a gate on the southwest corner of the property to access from Swanson Drive. Staff believes that it's impossible to provide vehicular access to the petitioner's property from Swanson Drive. Access must be provided basically off the western avenue where the existing driveway comes in and it goes north of the house, which, as the petitioner stated, and they'll clarify later in the meeting. Basically, there are several properties in the immediate vicinity that have a total accessory building area of up to 7,280 square feet, so there should be no impact on the property values of surrounding properties. The building will be used for the property owner's personal storage and as a hobby shop. The property adjacent to the petitioner's property mainly consists of 1-acre residential lots with a few 17-acre residential properties to the east of the petitioner's property. Thus, the proposed accessory building size should not affect the residentially used properties in the area. The requested building size will only cause a slight visual impact on neighboring properties. The proposed building size should not have a greater impact on natural flow of water from rooftops than the buildings already permitted in the area, as well as the residential houses. The accessory building may only be used for residential purposes. No commercial or business activities are allowed at any time. Given the size of other larger accessory structures in the immediate vicinity of the petitioner's property, a 1,728 square foot accessory structure would be congruent with the land composition. However, the petitioner's requested size may set a precedent for larger accessory buildings on relatively small 1-acre lots. An access will be provided via an extension of the petitioner's driveway. As you can see in this picture right there, the access would come off the driveway and go to the right of the house. No off-street parking will be required as a result of the personal storage use for the accessory building. And no offensive nuisances shall be permitted at any time during the use of the proposed accessory structure. And the use of lighting shall be directed downward onto the property in order to prevent light pollution off-site to the neighboring properties. Thus, staff finds that the proposed building size would set a precedent for larger accessory structures on relatively small 1-acre lots. Therefore, the petitioner's request should be limited to the size of the existing residential accessory building in the neighborhood, 1,600 square feet. Staff recommends approval of conditional use permit 14-09 with the following conditions. that the total accessory building square footage shall not exceed 1,600 square feet with 15-foot sidewalls, which is the largest existing accessory structure in the neighborhood. If I skip forward here, this is the 1,600 square foot, and as you can see, it's kind of around that 15-foot sidewalls with the garage door there, the overhead door. That the accessory building shall not exceed 35 feet in height. That a building inspection is required to determine that the building does not exceed 1,600 square feet measured from the outside perimeter with 15-foot sidewalls. That the existing garden shed shall be removed from the property prior to construction of the proposed accessory building. That the building shall be an accessory use to the continued use of the property as a residential lot. That only personal residential storage shall be allowed in the building and no commercial uses or commercial storage will be allowed at any time. That all outdoor lighting shall be of a full cutoff and fully shielded, designed to prevent direct spillage of light beyond the property boundaries. That a building permit is required prior to the construction of the accessory building. And that the Planning and Zoning Department reserves the right to enter and inspect the accessory building at any time after proper notice to the owner to ensure that the property is in full compliance with the conditional use permit conditions of approval in the Minnehaha County zoning ordinance. And with that, I entertain any questions that you may have.
Are there residences directly behind the example 1,600 square foot structure that you mentioned?
Behind the 1,600 square foot structure?
Right, the existing.
There's a house to the north of that.
So there is a house to the north, but it is shielded by a row of basically coniferous trees.
Any other questions?
Have you discussed the 1,600 feet with the petitioner then?
I've discussed it with him two times, and he's leveraging between the 15-foot sidewalls because I think he mentioned to me that he has a camper that he wants to store in there, and I think petitioner can clarify for me, but I think it was 13 feet, but he wanted to exceed that. He said he would have been okay with 12-foot sidewalls. But then again, don't quote me on that. You can ask the petitioner. Just to clarify.
Okay, thank you. Is the petitioner here? Can you come forward?
I'm Roger Coyman. I live at 5905 North Western Avenue, and I petition here to have a variance for the size building. We have several boats and several other vehicles that we want to put in. Presently at another location, I'm moving back to my own location here and not have them set outside. That's the primary reason. And with the building, I'd like to have 36 foot because I have a sailboat that's about 33 feet long, so it won't fit in a smaller building. I'd like to go to at least 45 feet long. I was petitioning for 48 feet long. I'd like to petition for 45 feet long. That's 1,620 feet, but that puts me in a building that's in increments that they can build for. 2-foot increments.
Okay. 1620 is what I heard.
1620. So it's just 20 feet over what they're asking. What he's.
Is that measured with? Are you planning 1620 with any kind of an overhang, or?
Yeah, 1620, 2-foot overhang.
So the overhang normally is calculated in the square footage, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's the structure wall.
Just the structure wall?
I think they're allowed to have 24-inch overhangs.
Okay, thank you for that.
Good, thank you for that. So, understanding some person questioning which way the water's running. Water from that location runs south. It does not run to the west at all. In fact, some of the water, I got some pictures that will show the water runs from that area towards the fence between us and then south. And all the water that's on that property there that I'm on runs south.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, and I know, and then I know staff came up with a 15-foot, but I know buildings, a lot of them, 14 and 16 are also height sidewalls are more common too. I don't know if that is,
Yes, 14-foot door takes a 16-foot
sidewall.
You can get 15 foot 4 inches, but you're cutting hairs there.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just the thing, if we've got, because our zoning has already got 35 feet in height limits, I don't know if we need to limit that, or if we do,
Yeah,
maybe
we'll be
16
way
foot
under
sidewalk.
that.
Well, I know you'll be way under that, but I don't know whether that gets redundant. I'd rather put it at a 16-foot sidewall, and still the same square footage, but.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm agreeing with what you're saying there, but I'm trying to figure out what the intent of staff was. Was it not to exceed 15 feet sidewalls, or that it had to be a 15-foot sidewall?
Well, it was based off an approximation of the largest existing residential or accessory structure out there, and just determining whether that would be 15 foot.
Was your idea not to exceed 15?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the because I'm looking at it saying, well, this is saying that he has to build a 15-foot sidewall the way it's written. And what you're saying is,
I didn't read it that way, but
well, that's why I read it, because it says it cannot exceed that with 15-foot sidewalls. So, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're all under the standing that that's the maximum that it would be.
yeah, I can live with that.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Yep.
Mr. Koima, you indicated this is your property you're putting in the facility and not for commercial storage for others?
No, it's for just our own private storage and my own hobby shop. I'm retired, so I don't have any intention of doing a business there.
Okay, thank you.
I'm done with that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in the audience who'd like to speak to this matter? Yes, please come forward, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Jim Reef. I live at 5904 North Swanson Drive. My property is, my property is in kind of a pie shape, and I have my east side borders at least 3 or 4 of the property owners to the east of me. So Mr. Koima's entire backyard is along my footage. It's interesting to find out the changes of footage, height, use, and such tonight, because when we have asked zoning or we have asked the petitioner, it's just going to be for this, it's only going to be a certain size. So I really question, what is it really going to be? If it is approved, I cannot stress the importance of ensuring that what is approved is adhered to. In part because when it was initially told to us that the petitioner was asking for this building, the petitioner said that he was going to obtain property from my wife and I so that he could drive off of Swanson Drive. I was never asked. The comment about drainage, I have pictures that indicate that there are spots along his approximately 170 feet in the back that do drain onto my property. As David said, that there is approximately 30 feet from my drain field. I cannot risk having water go in there if we have some of our winters or springs and go into my, I won't call it floodplain, but into my drain field. If that does happen, who's at fault? Who pays for the problem? The other thing is, I don't know for fact, but I question the idea of the 2, I believe, buildings that were mentioned that were right around 7,000 feet. I don't believe or know for sure if they're in the Swanson Track area in the development. Those are right there, and then the other one is down in a nursery. Those, like I say, I do not know for fact. I just know that when I was provided with when our local township questioned a road study, that property was not included in it. The existing buildings that are in there are very nicely situated among trees. They're not a bit obvious. This property sits on kind of a hill. You can see it east-west on Interstate 90. It'd be an eyesore. If it would be approved by the county, I would stress the importance of it being in a similar design, color, whatever, to the house, so it would blend in. I am concerned about the drainage, and I have, the last I spoke with the petitioner, he indicated he was going to put a fence, as I think David mentioned, in his southwest corner. Now, or a gate. Now, why would you want to put a gate in there since you don't have access from Swanson? I was told by a petitioner that he has an agreement by the person to the south at the very corner that he can access. There's only two means of accessing from the corner lot into his, through mature evergreen trees, which I don't think the neighbor is going to allow to be cut down, and he wouldn't be able to bring a boat through it, or along my property, which or along right there, that building to the edge of my property line, which goes almost to that marker there, is 10 feet 4 inches. Now I can't believe that, and it curves, slopes down. I can't believe that you're going to risk either tearing out, if I were to put a fence in there, or take out a corner of a building. So I really am opposed to it because of my concerns for drainage, for accessibility. Now, Disher mentioned that he's going to bring in, he has boats and such. I've seen one boat and one sailboat. I don't know if they were both his or not. If it's going to replace that garden shed, that's probably, what, a 10 by 10. Anyway, I know there's other people here this evening that would like to speak as well. Do any of you have any questions that I can answer?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Linda Ruth. I'm Jim's wife. I live at 5904 Swanson Drive, and I realize this might seem redundant, but there's a few other issues I'd like to bring up, if you don't mind. At that, you can see the large evergreen. That is the beginning of 5 large evergreens of ours in the corner, which we have fenced in. They are 26 years old. I don't want to lose them if we have a huge amount of water. The reason we are so concerned of drainage is that we have had an issue like this on the north side of our lot when an empty lot was bought and a house was installed or built on it. The person who bought the land filled up the lot 4 feet taller than it was in the area where the house was going. When the house was built, I called the planning and zoning office, which was an entirely different group of people that worked in it at that point in time, because we're talking about 20 years ago. Told them that this had gone on and I was concerned about water coming our way. I was told by the person in the planning and zoning office at that time that I was wrong. It wasn't going to go south. The water was going to go north. Well, the first rainstorm happened after the house was finished and the eaves troughs were up. And we had an absolute flood gushing out of those eaves troughs and coming right into our yard. So pictures and a report were forwarded to the planning and zoning office. They decided the homeowner should put in a swale between our properties, specifically on his side, so it would drain into the road ditch. Everything settled down. Nothing went on for a while. So after a few months, that homeowner filled up the swale, put sod on top of it. We notified the planning and zoning board what had been, or planning and zoning department what had been done. Nothing was done, nothing was changed. I don't believe anybody even came out to check it out. And we did provide pictures of the dirt being brought in, etc. We still had water problems. We ended up having to solve that ourselves financially. We have no intentions of doing that this time. We're presenting this, we're coming forward and from the very beginning doing what we should diligently do. And I don't think it would be fair that we should have to continue to pay for choices other people make. So if there is a situation that happens like that, there will be a liability issue. We also have another issue in our neighborhood which has been completely oversighted, and that is the fact that the lots on the west side of the hill in contention, which would be the opposite side of where Mr. Koima lives, are covered under covenants. So is the west side of us across the road. Those covenants were we were all given a little sheet of those. Our house was repossessed as house or property by a bank. So I understood when we didn't get a huge explanation of things when we bought our house. But other people that bought their land and built from that were told that all the properties and lots in our area were covered under these covenants. We have since discovered that via the Registrar's of Deeds office that some are covered, some aren't. Those of us on the west side of the hill in question are covered under the covenants. Those across the road from us are. Those to the east are not. Some of the newer lots on the way up north on hill are not covered by those. This creates a lot of tension. So when people have to go by on Swanson Drive, and they view this huge building, which their set of covenants says they can't have, unless they come through something like this. Evidently now it's being changed, and I don't know if the covenants were even brought up when Mr. Williamson built his building a couple of years ago. And I don't know if there's issues with that, or if by appearing before this it changes things, etc.
Covenants typically are not a matter of planning and zoning, nor are they enforced by planning and zoning. Those would be a civil matter. So.
Okay. But we are still expected to abide by these things. Someone suggested to me that perhaps those were just put in place for development of the land, but yet if they're in the same breath that they're still listed at the Register of Deeds, there is validity, and according to the document I got, it does say that unless a group of citizens within that area, a large enough group, decide that they don't want them, in the majority rules, I would say, from that explanation, or the way I read it, then they're still in place.
They would not have a bearing on a zoning matter.
Issue anyway.
Right.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Then another issue is that those previous buildings, that large buildings that have been built in our housing area, have not been put in a position in their lot where they could cause any drainage issues or problems for another neighbor. They've all been put in certain areas where they were kept, within a decent amount of coverage, etc. We're not sticking out a church. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am? We have one question.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Just quick, I want to make sure I know, and somebody else can probably the picture that we're looking at there, is that your property, or are you across the road to the west of that?
That is
that's looking north is what we're doing here.
My property, actually, there is, from the beginning of where you see the corner of that garage, that's a freestanding garage on a neighbor's property south of us.
Okay, she's over there. Okay.
And our property does extend that far. We just enclosed our fence to end it at a certain point to avoid problems. There you see our fence line, etc. And we go, which is it, Jim? It's several hundred feet to the north.
Thanks. That's all I need.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here that would like to speak to this matter?
Yes, sir.
My name is Nate Herrick. I live at 6104 Northwestern Avenue. I'm not in the Swanson tracks. I'm across the road to the east on Riverside. We have an acreage there. Been there 36 years, and we feel we're part of the neighborhood because we watched it develop. And I did learn from this that the poorly planned development that it is worse than I thought it was, because of the fact that you have a core of lots that are under covenants, and then the earlier lots that were sold were not. And what it does is it leaves people in the core that have spent extra money to build buildings that apply to their covenants, that are stick-built, that match the house and are shingled and fit in. They've done so, and now the introduction of metal pole buildings into that area is a sore spot to a lot of people, and I understand that. I hope, did you get my written explanation that I wanted to get to that ahead of time so that you had a chance to look it over. And I guess the only hope that I have, I'd like to see a neighborhood that comes out with everybody feeling as good as they can, and everybody getting as much as they would like, or a compromise. And I think a relocation, redesign and type of structure built into a hill or something that would keep a profile down instead of this large building sitting on the top of the hill. I think it's going to cost more money, but it could save a lot of hard feelings and make a good neighborhood. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Richard Huddleston. I live at 6004 North Swanson Drive. I've been there 29 years. And what Dave has just told you is pretty accurate. The difference, you're comparing a pole building that they want to put up, and Roger wants to put up on his property, to a building that's 10 times as nice. That 1,600-foot building that you're comparing it to in size is a much nicer building and adds to the property value of that guy's property. This pole building will not add value to that neighborhood. There's no way that can compare. You can't compare that to his building to the ones that are in there already. The pole building that the Williams family built, it's not a legal building according to the neighborhood. It is a pole building, but if we would have known it was going to be a pole building, we wouldn't have allowed it. He snuck that building in, and the only way we could have done anything about it would have been after the fact. So that's partially our fault, that we didn't come to these meetings, but we trusted him to do what he was supposed to do. And now we've got a problem, because they have seen that building, and now they think that you can just go and put a pole building up wherever you want. We have a neighbor across the street that's in the process of building a nice, separate shop. He did it by the law, the bylaws, and it is such a nice building compared to the one that Roger wants to put up. I know they're not covered under the covenants as that we are, but he's still in the neighborhood. All these other buildings they're not in the neighborhood. The tree farm, he's a neighbor, but he's not in the tree farm. If you're going to compare our neighborhood to Malagard's tree farm, then you have to compare our neighborhood to the farms around us also. Simmonsman's farm is up there, just as close as the Tree Gut farm. The only thing is you don't have to use our road to get to it. So I would just think that consider our neighborhood down the line in 10 years, or 15 years when he's gone. And he no longer is a property owner there. That building's going to sit there, and what are they going to do with that building then? Who's going to use it and for what? We're thinking long-term for our neighborhood, not short-term storage for a motorhome that hasn't even been bought yet. You know, it's one of those deals with how many motorhomes are you going to put in a building like that? You put in 3 of them, 4 of them. There's just, we don't see any need for it. Ted, the guy building the building right now, 30 by 40 building, 1,200 square feet. You can't put enough stuff in that building, a normal person. There's no reason for it. 1,200 square feet is plenty big for what he has. I would just think that you consider our neighborhood down the line and not what we're going to have to go through later on after this is put up. That one pole building shouldn't be there. We would have stopped it, but now we have to deal with pole building after pole building. But once you start them, you can't stop them. I just hope that would be taken into consideration. Thanks.
Anyone else?
My name is Bob Larson. I live at 6204 North Hummingbird. We've been there 11 years now. I just want to add, I live directly across this road from the 1,600 square foot building that you saw the picture of. He has, it's taking time, he has mature trees around there, but the main thing is that building matches his home. It's sided like the house, it's shingled like the house, it looks like it's painted the same, it fits with the house. And I don't see that as an eyesore or anything. Now, I realize that Roger is not under our covenants and you can't do anything about that, but we all drive right by each other's property. We all use the same road to get in there. There's only one way in, actually. But I just want to add with those other buildings, and like what he's mentioned, Ted's building now that he built, it's constructed like his home, sided and painted, and or will be, and roofed with asphalt shingles just like his house.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak to this matter? All right. Commissioners, what's your point?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I have a question of Mr. Quima.
Okay, please come forward.
Roger, in looking at the photograph that we have here,
yes, sir.
This is the proposed position of the building. Is that correct? Down here in the corner?
That's going to be right in the same.
It's too far away, I'm sorry.
That's right.
This is where you plan to put the building?
Yep.
Okay.
24 and 16 feet back.
All right. I guess my question to you then is, and I haven't seen the picture, it appears it's on a hill. Is there any problem with moving that building closer to your home, further north and further into the, I guess it would be the east, so it's not quite so close to the property line, and perhaps then mitigating some of the concerns about the water?
I think from what I'm hearing, his concern is from the roadside, seeing it. And I've got a picture here with the building drawn in it. And there's actually, if you look at it from the road, 6 feet off the road, there's 4 feet of the building that you don't see. Because it's down behind the hill.
Below the slope of the hill?
Yes, sir. If you look at it from the road, a road in front of our place. And there's trees going to be on the backside. There's all kinds of trees being grown by the neighbor. That's going to cover the backside. So that's going to be not exposed.
What do you think about some of the suggestions I've heard from the audience tonight about making the whole building look more like your home?
I think they're valid. It's costly, but it's valid.
Might make people feel a little better.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Koyman, I know one of the other concerns by one of the folks was just the ingress and egress in and out for the building. And I noticed the staff had not indicated that the entrance and exit point would be from the east off of Western Avenue.
Yes, sir. It's never intended to be from the south.
The south or the west?
No, sir.
Okay. So if staff were to put that condition in there, that wouldn't impact your approach to the structure?
No, sir. Not as long as no land is available from west, no.
Okay. And then the other issue was, I think, similar to one that Denny raised, and that's just, the color and how it would blend in, a red pole
We
shed.
plan on even if we were going to put a pole building and steel building up, it would blend with the house. It'd be absolutely the same color.
A neutral color.
Same color.
Okay.
Same color.
Did you intend asphalt shingles then, or as well?
No.
Or?
If it was a steel building, it'd be steel shingles or steel roof. There's a building on the north end of the area there that's got steel on it already. One of the houses got steel on it.
On the roof?
On the roof.
Mm-hmm. But what color would that be? Is that like a brown or
Yeah.
dark color?
Dark color.
Not galvanized?
No. Dark color. Yeah, dark color.
Other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Right now, the trees that are there that do shield the property somewhat are on the neighbor's property. There are not trees on your property that
I
would
got
provide.
trees on my property, and the neighbor's got trees too.
I didn't.
That
On
row of
both
trees
the
right
north
there.
and the west side?
That's my row of trees.
On the west.
And the building's going to be to the right of that. Where the little building is, that's where the building's going to be.
So currently, there are no trees to the north to shield the property?
Correct. I got one tree. There's one tree right to the east of that little white building there, between the neighbor's house and the building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've got something new to offer, not redundant. You can come forward.
Maybe I misunderstood, Roger, but from Swanson Drive, there's none of that. The entire building is visible. There's none of it that you can't see. I don't know where he's at when he's saying you can't see 4 foot of the building.
I think he was implying from Western.
Yeah, okay, that's down on the bottom.
Right.
Yeah, if you go down on Western Avenue, you're not gonna be able to see his, from the road, Western Avenue in front of his house, you're not gonna be able to see the building at all. We don't understand why the building doesn't go down there. That's where the majority, that would be the wiser place to put the building. But from Swanson Drive, where we have to drive, everybody in that neighborhood has to drive Swanson Drive, every single person. You have to go by and look at that, and you will see the entire building. You've got whatever the sidewalls are, plus what he's going to have to build up. The grade there, he's going to have to build that up. Because, in pole buildings, you don't start at the bottom and work up. You hang the sheets, and then you build the grade up to the bottom. So he's going to have to do that. So maybe I misunderstood you, but the entire building will be visible by every single person that drives to get home every day. Thank you.
All right. I think we'll close the floor. Commissioners, discussion or motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move approval with the one, because I know everything's much better in 2-foot increments and that for building to the 1620 square feet, with everything else being as already stated.
Mark, did you want to do anything about access from the east or color as had been suggested earlier?
I don't know, I think the petitioners indicated that it may. I hate to get the zoning board involved in some of those things. I mean, I think that's overstepping our bounds a little ways, specifying colors and those types of things for buildings. And it's already been stated that he has to use the same driveway as his current house driveway, and that is off of Western Avenue.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, would that motion include the 9 stipulations?
Yeah, everything else is just changing the one thing from 1600 to 1620 because of...
I'm not hearing a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. We got a motion and a second. Did you want us to...
Wait, you guys get done. Ours is going to have to match yours.
Any further discussion, folks?
I do have a question. This is related to Mark's comments from earlier, related to the sidewalls. I'm not really a builder, but that they're usually in 14 or 16 foot increments.
They usually are, but if he ends up, again, I'm not saying that, if he does end up, say, with a 2x6 type wall instead of a pole building, you can do that at the 15. I mean, it's just,
okay.
You know, and he said 15 was adequate, so I decided to leave it.
Chairman, the only comment I would have is, I agree with Mark, we're not involved in covenants, we just aren't, as you mentioned earlier. We're just involved with the size of the building, and the drainage issue is important, as she brought up. But I guess I'd have to concur for what our purposes are. As a zoning is.
The only thing I wonder about is if there should be any requirement for some trees on the north side of the building.
Screening?
Some screening. Just a question.
I'd point out that we oftentimes say earth tone colors and things, so we get in a color game with some
Yeah,
regularity.
last time you say earth tone colors. Neutral.
The same aspects if you would decide to paint his house purple, and then we're going to have a purple instead of earth tone for other building. You know, not saying, but.
Any other discussion? I'm going to call the question, and we've got a motion to approve change with the 9 stipulations, changing the first stipulation to 1,620 square feet. Do I have that right, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries on the county side.
On the city side, you'll have a motion. I'd move for approval for discussion purposes.
Second.
I have a hard time, I know this is within the 3-mile limit of the city of Sioux Falls, which brings us to this table. I have a real hard time seeing that becoming any part of the city of Sioux Falls in the foreseeable future. I've got to bow a little bit to the county's viewpoint on this. If I had my druthers, I'd like to see it be a stick-built building. But having said that, I understand where you're coming from. In the city of Sioux Falls, we are allowing neighborhood storage. We're calling it more commercial, but it has to be stick-built. It has to blend in with the neighborhood. It sounds like a building was previously approved that ended up being a metal building, which it sounds like the neighbors weren't aware of, but it's unfortunate that happened. But I'm one individual that's going to bow just a little bit to what the county feels on this issue.
Well, I also have some concern when we talk about constantly just kind of ignoring what the requirement is. And the reason the zoning description is there for 1,200 square feet is to set an upper limit. And I see more and more often we're just willing to kind of ignore that limit and say, well, let's just look at what else has been done, and then if people want to go up to that high or maybe even beyond it, then that's okay. And that's kind of degrading the value of having a zoning expectation in place so that neighbors know what to expect. And so that's part of where my concern lies, and constantly just kind of ignoring those limits.
I think for the one neighbor, if I can add, the drainage issue can be a big issue. I'm not sure in the county what a property owner's, where they can go with the drainage issue. I do know how it happens in Sioux Falls. If a person builds on a piece of property, the city can come back and see who made the mistake. In other words, when you take out a building permit, you've got to set your corner elevations. And they discovered that some years ago, probably back in about '93, when we had some huge rains and a lot of flooding. I'm not sure how that works at the county level. I don't know if you have that kind of mechanism to come back.
No, we don't. It's a civil, it ends up being a civil matter.
You know, I know there's probably not an easy answer to that.
So Kenny, your motion was for the 1620 square feet then, and all 9 stipulations? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed?
No.
Did not pass on this side.
It doesn't have to necessarily. So there you go. It goes to the joint meeting of the county commission and the city council, as stated earlier. That date is, let me see here. Is that going to be the Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014, and or after 5 p.m. in the Carnegie Town Hall? And
Now I'm uncertain myself now about
okay.
if you have a split decision, then I guess we can automatically forward it to the commission, the joint city-county commission, with that noted as no action, basically.
We're just an advisory board to them, so the city is advising our group.
Ultimately, they'll have a final
but they have
Well,
the decision.
Yeah, typically we'd have it. Okay, we can run it through them as sort of a split vote then.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Okay.
Okay. So that is the case. Then it will go to the county commission and city council on April 22nd.
Someone will be able
Second. Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think the city and the county will have to be together.